All right, we better get this thing started. Okay. Let's do some comedy. All right, comedy show. I always loved that bit he would do.
I often pull the one about the plumbers.
Do you? This is old Steve Martin material. If you've ever listened to his album Let's Get Small, which is, so he goes in this whole bit about two plumbers talking to each other.
I don't typically do this, but since there are plumbers in the audience, I want to do this bit for the plumbers. Okay.
And
then it's just
super
so
specific
nuanced plumbing. And so he says, some of the Kinsley manual. Right? I said socket, not sprocket.
And no one laughs.
Are those plumbers here tonight? Or
and that was the whole bit.
Okay. So bizarre.
How'd it go this weekend for you?
Good. Yeah, it went good. They were all good. It got better. It got clearer for me on Sunday.
How many? Is there 2 at BA on Saturday night?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I didn't think it was bad. It just kind of clarifies a little bit more as I talk it through.
I felt the same way.
Yeah.
But I don't have 2 on Saturday night. So I did 1, and I kind of went into it thinking, all right, like I don't know. I told the congregation on Saturday, I'm like, I don't really know how this is going to go. I'm not sure. I just like, I believe in the ideas that I'm going to share, and I figure I can get them out in some kind of way that you'll at least be able to understand. And that did happen. But I also don't know, man, just the way kind of my week shaped up. I didn't have quite the same time that I would normally. And so I put a lot of time into it, but it didn't come together in the same way that it might normally. And so I've just kind of put a bunch of verses and some quotes in there, and about Saturday around noon 30 or 1, I'm like,
you were still
enough.
Firing off clarity at like 4:50.
That's enough.
Hey, here's this. And I was like, stop sending me stuff, man. I'm trying to get a grip on this. That's what was incredible about the message, honestly, when you sent me the text, like, this one's going to be easy.
Yeah.
I mean, just pretty cut and dry.
Yeah,
and then as we got into it, it's like, oh man, this is one of the harder.
Yeah.
Because where I had the hardest time was getting to, honestly, the anger part. It was like, okay, I understand in some ways why he specifies anger, but why am I having a hard time drawing the connection? I don't know. It's just in my language.
I had a real, speaking of late in coming to you, I had an epiphany, I guess, or maybe I stumbled onto something on Saturday night. So that changed. It just helped me frame the whole anger bit as we got. So I don't want to, because I don't want to get into that yet, because that, for me, that was the end. The main thing at the beginning, and I'm curious if you went the same direction that I did. The beginning for me was kind of helping people understand the connection between what James says around, of his own will, he brought us forth by the word of truth, that we might be should be a first fruits, a kind of first fruits, I think it is, of his creatures. Or creation, something like that. And then the second reference to the word in the passage, which comes in verse 21, that we would receive with meekness the implanted word. That was the first half of my sermon, was like helping you see what's going on here, what's happening between these two things, between the of his own will, speaking about God. So if you're just hearing this and you haven't heard the sermon, oh gosh. Well, one, I just encourage you to go back and listen to it. But 2, maybe I'll try to unpack it a little bit for you. So it starts with, do not be deceived, my beloved brothers. I think it is something like that. Every good and perfect gift comes from above. Something about the Father of lights. I don't have the exact language memorized. Coming down from the Father of lights, with whom there is no variation or shadow due to change. Something like that. Yeah. Of his own will. So kind of where I began was this concept. I'm curious if you touched this at all, but we could talk a little bit about this. That James' first imperative is around perspective. So he's calling you to see God in a clear and accurate way. He's going to describe who the Lord is. He is the Father of lights. Every good and every perfect gift comes from him. You're going to have to see him. So the point that I opened with making is this is the Christian life. This is the modus operandi of the Christian, is that you got to see who God is. You got to see who you are in light of who he is, and see what he's done and what he's doing. And everything in your life, every high, every low, every setback, every victory, a mountaintop, all of it is viewed through this lens of who God is, who you are, what he's doing. I think that's kind of what James has been doing this entire letter from the very beginning. Count it all joy. That's a command toward perspective.
Yeah.
If you think about it, he's not just saying be happy. He's saying I want you to consider it this way. So in fact, some of the translations say consider it pure joy. So it's a consideration, a way of taking an idea and thinking about it. Here he's saying don't be deceived. So it's a more negative framing of a similar idea, which is don't look at it like this. Count it all joy is look at it this way.
Yeah.
Don't be deceived is don't look at it. Don't be fooled about this. Let me give it to you accurately. This is who God is. And so when you see him that way, or you see him properly, and this is my argument, that all sin, all missing the mark, at its core, at its root, has the sin of unbelief. Mm-hmm. Every sin really originates with this misbelief or unbelief about who God is. You don't believe he's good, or you don't believe he's capable, or he's trustworthy, whatever the case may be. You just don't buy it. That's where, if you go back to the garden, that's how sin begins, is with a twisting of who God. Did he really say that? Is that really what he knows. He's holding something back from you. So the enemy's, I think, primary job, and you could understand this if he's God's adversary in the sense of is to try to corrupt his image in who you think he is, to get you to believe he's not who he says he is. And so all sin is really that. So James is going to clarify that. And what I'm getting at, and maybe we could talk about this for a second. I'm curious if you have any. One, did you talk about any of that? Or two, any thoughts come to your mind about how you do this? But for me, it's every moment of my life, and really, man, this is going to play into, this is where, as we get into the anger piece, I'm realizing maybe the reason I've not dealt with my anger properly throughout my entire life is that I don't think I've seen it for what it really is in light of who God is till this weekend.
Yeah.
So this is going to be fun to talk about. But so I'm framing my life through the lens of who God is, and then responding accordingly. The example that I gave was of Elliot leaving to go to college on a last Sunday that I was preaching, and I was feeling emotional about it all. And I went down to stand by my daughters who were worshiping in the service. I don't normally do that. Normally I like to kind of be backstage just to kind of collect my thoughts and prepare. And I went down there, was standing beside them, and I had this epiphany as I was standing there. I'd thought of it before, but it just hit me more strongly, was that this shoulder to shoulder orientation that I had with them. I was standing beside them. I'm right facing, the platform, but worshiping, singing "How Great Thou Art," and I'm thinking, this is the most permanent and true thing about our relationship. I am a brother in Christ to them more than I am even their biological father. And so that's a framing of my role as dad through the lens of who God is and what he's done and what he's going to do. So that's kind of where I started. And I think that's sort of the underlying principle of what James is getting at, is let's see ourselves properly. Let's see who God is properly. Yeah. I think that's why he's going to say, don't be deceived, because to be deceived is to live, like he's going to describe later, which we didn't get into this weekend, but to be a man who looks in a mirror and then forgets what he looks like. It's like you're not living in accordance with what reality is. You're fooling yourself.
Yeah.
I think that is the epitome of foolishness. So therefore, wisdom would be living in accordance with what's true. Mm-hmm. So anyway, that's how I started. Did any of that kind of thing?
I began, how did I begin? I began talking about everyone or life requires an ethos, just a set of guiding principles. And for the Christ follower, it's meant to be informed by all that God is, his character and his goodness, and that goodness is constant. And so that was meant to be our response from the garden on. And then obviously it fell apart. And I talked about why it fell apart was this internal conflict of desire. So
wow.
So
that's what James had just talked about.
Yeah. So the reality of distrust is not just I just don't trust you. It's I don't trust you to gratify my desire.
Yeah, that's
and
really
so
good.
Where do you go?
That's really good.
Where do you go for fulfillment?
That's what we're going to find with anger too, by the way.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm sitting there watching that football game Saturday night, thinking, why? What part of fulfillment? Like, what about this? And I'm asking myself these deep questions, like, what am I looking for fulfillment wise?
Wow.
And why do I get angry because there's somehow and it, it is
what does this fulfill? Yeah.
And it I don't even half know. It's just like, what is this going to do for my life? And I think some of it is just becomes pattern. And so it's just buried under a lot of dirt of life. And it's just like, I don't know, we just have to excavate for a really long time to figure out why this actually matters to the point where I'm screaming at the television.
At college kids that you don't know, calling them names. Willing to, quite frankly, like discard them just completely as people. Not even.
And in my mind, the cognitive dissonance is I'm discarding you as like this entertaining figure on the TV, but I really want what's best for you. Just right now, because you muffed that punt, I hate you for that. You have done some real damage to my night.
Wow.
It's just but then I'm sitting there going, why do I care? And the older I get, the better at that I get at just sort of processing it. But it's just all these little moments of gratification. And so I build a lot on it's flesh or spirit. And so I brought in Galatians 5:16.
Okay.
So it's just the tension of fulfillment, this side or this side. Where do you go? And so, so then anger as a response to that, the mind of the flesh, it's so in going to self-righteousness.
Yeah.
I talked about the elevation of self-righteousness above people because that's what it is. But the reason why I think it is because when you're self-righteous, you're responsible for your righteousness. Or so God's anger is meant to fulfill his righteousness, which is his order, his goodwill, his divine will. It's all in line. It's not like an emotional offshoot. So it moves him, it continues to move in that direction. So self-righteousness doesn't do that. So what is it? It's like you're attempting to bring order apart from God.
Yeah.
So then you're angry because everyone's screwing it up.
That's right.
And that's where we're gonna go. That's why you're angry.
All right. So I want to get into that, but I want to save that because that's where we're going to kind of end this, I think, because that's really the part where this really hits home. But I think, okay, so for me, it was starting with this idea of viewing life properly because I see God clearly, which led into verse 18, really where I wanted to begin and the focus. Of his own will, he brought us forth by the word of truth, that we might be a kind of first fruits of his creation. So there's so much there, like so much there to unpack. We're not going to spend a ton of time on it. The main, so to kind of begin, of his own will, this is God's doing. Yeah. So the description I think that James has in view here is of the beginnings of a new creation. We would call it being born again. New life, the new birth in Christ. When he's talking about of his own will, he brought us forth. In other words, you weren't alive, spiritually speaking, right? But now you are. And why did that happen? It was his will. He initiated it. So step one is you got to accept that this whole act of salvation is of God's initiation and his desire, his plan, his nature. He came after you. So spend just a little bit of time talking about that it's God who does it. John 1, I think it's 12 and 13, makes real clear that of those who did believe he brought them basically to new life, not of blood, nor of the flesh, nor of man's will, but of God. It was God who, in other words, the plan of salvation isn't anything that man came up with. Neither did we have anything to really do with it. It's God who did it all. Before the foundation of the world, the decision had been made for Christ to come and die for humanity, so sinful humanity. So of his own will, he brought us forth. So new life comes because of him. How does it come? By the word of truth. That's the gospel. So the gospel comes to you outside of you. It's the Lord's doing, and he brings it to you. It comes to you. And when it hits your heart, there's a new life. You are a kind of first fruits, the beginnings of new life. Now, this for me was where then I went down here to verse 21, which says, receive with meekness the implanted word. So here we have the word bringing new life. But now here we have this idea of receiving with meekness. And basically what I was drawing out was that what James has in view, and he said this from the beginning, has in view your maturity in mind.
Right.
He wants us to become the mature believers that we can be, spiritually mature, adult, if you will, Christians. And the way that that's going to happen is new life begins with God, but there's a part that you play, and that part is receiving with meekness the implanted word of God. That's your role. What does that look like? So for me, that's where I pivoted and went straight to Mark 4. Where is James drawing? What is the imagery that he's drawing on here that got him to this idea of implanting the word of God like a seed? Now, I don't know for sure, but it seems like a pretty good guess that he's taking imagery from his own brother, who talked about the word being planted like a seed or being sown onto different soils. So the parable of the sower, Jesus describes 4 different soils that represent, I keep coming back to this parable because I keep finding so much depth in it. It seems to be an explanation for so much. 4 different soils, 4 different heart conditions that really describe what James might call the receptivity, your willingness to receive, to accept the implanted word of
meekness,
God. Like with meekness, right? Like what's the degree of the receptivity of your heart? How much are you receiving this? So the Lord Jesus describes seed sown along a path, seed sown in shallow soil that has a lot of rocks in it. It springs up quickly, but when the sun comes out, it's scorched, it dies. A third soil that is filled with thorns and other things, and it's choked, it's strangled. It doesn't die, but it doesn't produce fruit. And finally, the fourth soil, which produces 30-fold, 60-fold, 100-fold. In other words, a multiplication of fruit. So, okay, what are some observations that we could make about this? One, the sower is the one who sows the seed. So the first thing to note is that it is the sower's choice to sow the seed, similar to what James says in verse 18, of his own will. What does the soil have to do with the sower sowing the seed? And the answer is nothing. The soil has no choice in the matter as to whether or not the sower, it's purely the sower who's going to choose to sow the seed. And he does so indiscriminately. He seems to sow the seed across. He's not like another farmer who's going through and sowing each seed in like a carefully plowed field. He's tossing it everywhere along a path and rocky and thorny. Like he's just tossing it everywhere. That kind of gives us a picture of like the gospel comes to us all. We're not all in the same condition, but God indiscriminately is
knowing
sowing,
full well what's
exactly.
in our heart.
But he's going to give you a choice. He's going to give you an opportunity. Second thing, the seed, the quality, and I think I got this from you because I think you shared this way back in the Mark series when we went through this parable in Mark, because you were the one teaching Mark 4 that weekend. But the seed is the same. So there's no distinction in seed. In other words, the parable doesn't go like this. So a sower went out to sow, and some of that seed was really potent. It had the power to produce incredible transformation. amazing fruit of the Spirit in people's lives. And some of it was kind of weak and ineffectual, and it wasn't going to do a whole lot. They were going to go to heaven. They get in, but only by the skin of their teeth. It wouldn't really produce too much. They wouldn't really be all that different. They'd probably still be bound by the same old sins they'd always been bound by. But it'll do a little something at least. But that's not what it says. The difference, which my third point was, the difference that you find is in the soil, which means that we're really convicting. If there's not much of the life of God at work in you, it's not the fault of the word.
Yeah.
That's on you. The problem is in the receiving, not in the giving. The sower is sown. It's in the receptivity of your heart.
So your desire either keeps it or the rocks, which Jesus says it's the persecution of the word. And and
it's because he says, because it has no depth of soil. So ultimately what happens is it really doesn't penetrate all that deeply into your heart.
Right.
The rocks represent a shallow. I always think of that as like, you really hadn't considered what the gospel actually means and how far this goes in your life. Maybe you'd taken a kind of surface level faith. But anyway, you were saying.
Yeah, he talks about through the rocks being persecutions as a result of the word.
Hardship, yep.
And so, hardship. So that whenever you read that and you just think of persecution, we always think of it sort of in the, I'm being outwardly persecuted for what I believe, and I can't withstand the persecution, which is to me, it's far more an internal persecution of my hardship is evidence against the goodness of God. My story is evidence.
That's exactly right.
Of God.
So I find that a lot. I had that just a couple of weeks ago. I've heard it a lot lately, actually. People who, interestingly, it's not their own suffering so much as it is the suffering of people they deemed good.
Yeah.
So it's my mom. She was a believer. I stopped believing because my mother was a believer. Yeah. And she had loved the Lord her whole life, and then she suffered from cancer at the end, and it was a miserable, awful death. And I saw that, and I said to myself, how could God, who's good, let my mom go through that? That's often and you take some variation of that, but that's how people basically think about it. It's usually not for them. It's funny, I think, because we know better about ourselves. We know we're not really worthy of.
Well, that's why I'm not minimizing the pain of the loss of a loved one, but it's we piggyback onto the greatest tragedy we can kind of find, or to us, the greatest injustice. And so we look at that and go, and it truly is, did God really say? It's like, could you really be because of this?
Yeah.
And so really it's our own distrust, because we distrust God because of what we see out here. And I always found that interesting, because I thought the idea in that, if you extrapolate it out, is that one day we'll get to heaven or wherever we go, and we'll kind of bring to the court of God our evidence against him and say, you're not because of this. And he's going to go, you know what, you're right.
I should have.
This was tough.
I could have.
You get in here. It's just like that, and people they live their life that way, just building everything on this rock underneath my soil. I think that, and I think the other question is, where did you get the idea? This is where I think the depth of soil comes in, because they've been this whole time, their faith illusion goes something like this: if I live a really decent life, then God owes me something in return. There's like a debt that's created, and if I'm gonna pray, and I'm gonna be a decent person, and I'm gonna go to church, and I'm gonna be kind, that somehow on the other end of that, it's more of like a karma kind of thing. That's gonna then result in like me getting to live a long time, and I'll never have any hardship. And it's a puzzle. I mean, I understand why, because plenty of people have kind of basically taught Christianity that way. But I mean, have we forgotten that we serve? That the very center of our story is, a guy who was perfect, who was God, who never sinned, and went to the cross, like died. He suffered more than anyone. And his whole message was, take up your cross and follow me. And somehow we came out of that whole story with, if I'm really good, none of that will happen to me. Yeah.
And But again, that's where I'm saying, like, I think, where did we get the notion that, like, Job's in there? How did we get past all of this where we somehow thought, but that's not, like, no, the whole name of the game is, I'll be really good, I'll be really faithful, I'll pray, I'll do this, and now you'll owe me something in return. And I think there's more complexity to it than just a simple, like, tit for tat kind of sort of game where basically I'm getting God in my debt. This is part of what I think is going on with the older brother in the parable of the prodigal son. It's just like, God owes me something. And so when things, and for folks like this is where grace becomes really offensive. Because what grace seems to do, this is the whole parable of, remember the workers who've been working all day, and then there's the people that come in at the very end and work 30 minutes and they get the same wage that the guys have been working all day.
If I'm honest, like,
wait a minute,
I would probably raise my hand on that one too.
Right, but that's exactly, but like that's because you there's this, you hadn't really considered it enough. That's where I think I think the God that we're dismissing is not the actual God that we serve. I think that's we've dismissed a faith that was never really our faith to begin with. In other words, like the faith that we've had is like, that's not even real Christianity. What we've disbelieved in, I don't believe in it either, because that's not what this is. And so anyway, I not wanting to turn this into a conversation on suffering and hardship, but somewhere in there, we've bought into this. Like, I mean, I've said this before. People say everybody deserves a second chance. Why?
Yeah.
Where did we get the idea? But we believe it, that somehow the universe, God, somebody owes me something. I don't know where we get this notion that somehow, so there's a standard by which goodness can be judged, and we get to be the ones that somehow judge that. I was sent yesterday, a mutual friend of ours sent me some Instagram reel. The guy's not a believer, but his whole thing is basically some painter. I don't even know who this guy is. He's saying, we are not nearly as good as we think we are. We're not nearly as most all of us are living under the illusion that we're pretty good people down deep, but that's only because we're not living examined lives. We really, if we were to examine ourselves a little more closely, we'd find that we're not really that good. And I believe that. Like that's exactly. Every now and again, you get a little piece of like some art, like a movie. There was some, I don't know, did you ever see it? There's some Julia Roberts movie. It was actually produced by the Obamas, of all people, that made.
Oh yeah.
It was on Netflix, and a lot of people hated it because it was just like depressing. Basically, the point of the story is like, we're all a lot, like, you'd like to believe that under, like, really, we'd all band together and help one another, and that is not what's going on. We are hurting one another. I mean, I think that's interesting that in so many of the dystopian future movies, the real enemies are not the zombies as much as they are the really awful people.
Yeah.
And like, when it all breaks down, you find we're far more selfish.
Yeah, I entirely believe that.
Yeah, but somehow we kind of living under this illusion when it's sort of like peacetime and things are okay. There were good people because there's just not that much at stake, and so it doesn't draw out our own selfishness. Anyway, I'm probably sidetracking us a little bit, but so we're talking about the soils. These 4 soils of the heart. How did we get here? Where are we going? What are we talking about? Oh yeah, receiving with meekness the implanted word of God.
Yeah. Of course that's what we were talking about. Yeah.
Okay, so the idea is that it has a lot to do with the condition of your heart. Are you willing to receive this? So what does it look like to receive? Did you get into any of that?
Yeah.
Okay. What did you say? I'm curious.
Just to receive is hear and do.
Yeah.
It's to apply.
Yeah.
And so we talk about. I mentioned how the tendency is to sit in church and sort of leave with the idea that, and even stating it's good. It's always so good. It's just like, how was it? It was so good.
That's so good. Yeah.
And like, but do we have any thought towards application? And it's not really set up this way. In one service, I drew the analogy to me in high school. Like, I came in and I was there, but never in my mind did I arrive at, I'm going to actually do something with what, I'm in this room for a reason, to listen, to learn, to grow, and to move forward. And a lot of people approach church that way, the way maybe I and others approach high school, which is like, I'm here.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what matters, and I'll find a way to get through, but I'm not really interested in learning this for the sake of application. I couldn't connect the dot.
Well, a lot of times what happens is, and I think what I would say is, it's not the worst place to start, because at least you are there, and maybe the Lord could over time begin. Usually what has to happen is life has to break down to a degree that it can, you now really need something to change. Right. So then you're like, oh, I'm willing to listen in a different way than I used to be willing to listen. And maybe if you're there long enough, like certain lights start to come on, and it takes a lot longer than what you think, or what maybe, it's
that's the tension of, you sit there and you realize that what's being presented to you is true, but it's also incredibly difficult to apply. Because it's just, most people let themselves down often when it comes to progress. I mean, we kind of point in a direction, go, that's where I'm going, and then we start to move, and then we fail, and then we get up again, and then we move, and then we fail. And so we realize that this total life change is beyond us. And
it is.
And so that's the part where it's like getting to your wit's end is in many ways required. It's, you come to the end of yourself and realize you don't have the strength, but then the movement towards that is this humble submission / true relationship, which is the dependency. Like, I can't, and talking about anger, and we'll get to that, but it's just like, I can't fix this. I mean, I hear things that are true, and then I think, how do I apply this? I need to do this, and I kind of start putting myself in a position to take these particular steps. And then I realize I can't keep this up unless I'm drawing from a much greater source.
Well, that's it.
Which is the receiving of meekness.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I think, and so maybe this does kind of start to lead us in, because maybe we can start. I had a lady come up to me after the 11:30 service this weekend, and she goes, how did she, like, it started with like, you finally did it. And I was like, what? And she was like, you told me how to do this.
Oh, wow.
She's like, I've always wondered, like, how did this change happen? And you told me to, and a lot of it's really hard to do, to like explain because I'm by no means a finished product. We're going to talk really a lot about how much I'm not, but also how much I have changed. How does it happen? And honestly, there's a lot of it. You're like, it's hard to explain, but I do feel like there was a pretty helpful pattern in this weekend. The initial, so let's just paint a real clear picture based off this kind of seed soil analogy. The sower sows the seed, and in 3 of the 4 soils, new life occurs. I don't think we consider that enough. I think we think only one soil, only a quarter of it was successful. Well, hold up, like 3/4 of it produced new life.
Yeah,
there was a plant that began to grow. In 50% of them, it survived, and 50% it doesn't survive. 1, it never gets started. 2, it doesn't survive. Only in 1 does it become fruitful. There's a really interesting kind of like gradation here, or like, I don't know what you call it, like stepped pattern. But new life occurs. The question is, what will make the difference between just that getting started and that really doing something, becoming like Psalm 1, which we read at Tulsa this weekend? Blessed is the man who walks not in the counsel of the ungodly, nor stands in the way of sinners, nor sits in the seat of the scoffer. By the way, that correlates perfectly to, therefore, put away all filthiness and rampant wickedness, and receive with meekness. Yeah. So don't do this. Get rid of this. Blessed is the man who does not. And what does he do? He meditates day and night. He is, what is he like? Oh, he's like a tree. Well, I mean, you get all the same word picturing, like a plant, something growing strong, planted by streams of water that yields its fruit in its season. In other words, let the word work in you, and it will produce what it can produce.
Yeah.
So there's a yielding to all of this. That's the one thing I really want to say is, first of all, I hope people hear this, or maybe don't hear this. Don't hear That what we're saying is that somehow you've got to, so basically that God saves you, brings new life, and then from there on out, it's down to you. It's into your own strength and power that you're going to become spiritually mature. No, that's not what we're saying. And that's not what James is saying. He's talking about, the key is in that meekness, receive. This is all passive reception. It's allowing him to do what he can do.
That's the
seed
consistent
to do.
work.
That's the work. That's the only role I have.
All I have to
is
do.
surrender to him. Yeah. So that's it. So I'm allowing him to work in me. Now, what then does that receiving with meekness look like? And I'm trying to think. I lost my train of thought here, so let me see if I can recover it. What were we talking about?
So whenever I talked about how I got here, but sin, Romans 3:23, I've taught this at probably all of the churches at this point, so I won't go deeply into it. But this sin, you fall short of the glory of God. All of sin and fallen short. And the Greek word there for sin is to miss the mark. And so the innocent and way to look at that is that I tried and I fell short. Like that the flesh is just weak. Like I was aiming and I just came up short. But it's not necessarily just to miss a mark, but to miss aim.
You're aiming at the wrong
you
thing.
aim elsewhere. And why do you aim elsewhere? Well, it's that distrust of God. So I don't believe that aiming at God will fulfill me. So I am seeking to fulfill myself.
You missed the mark because you aimed at something else.
You're aiming at something. You're aiming at something else. And so you're
powerful.
You're going in this direction. And how does this connect to what we were talking about?
You guys are
brought something
talking
up.
about the pattern that the woman at the end of the weekend, she came up to you and said, you finally showed me the pattern. You showed me how to do it. And
so I guess so where I'm getting at is this idea of the key to maturity is this receptivity of your heart, your willingness to participate with or allow the Lord to work in you, his will, his desires. Now, when James talks about anger, and this really goes to what I was talking about in the beginning, is that the way to overcoming all of these things is to see where your desires are off.
Right.
To see God for who he is and to see how, so the reason, this is what really hit me this weekend. So I taught a little bit of this practically speaking on Saturday night about anger. Let's take a good example of this, a proverb, like a soft answer turns away wrath.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to minimize that verse. It's a great verse. It's helpful. It's in the book. It's practical, but disconnected from the power, or I might say the deeper desire that motivates it. It's really just a truism that I'm trying to remember when I feel my blood boiling. And so quite frankly, it doesn't help me that much because I seem, and I think this is what Paul's talking about in the book of Romans, I'm kind of incapable of choosing it. I know it's true, but I don't really want to choose it because I want something else. I want to tell you that you're wrong. I want you to understand that it's your fault. I want to be right, or I want to pay you back for getting in my way or stopping me from having what it is that I want to have. So for me, my battle throughout my life with anger has really just been, I've understood it's not a hard thing to grasp that anger is bad. It isn't a hard thing to grasp that anger hurts other people. It hurts your kids. You say things that hurt your wife. Whatever. I know all of that. It hurts my relationship with others. I demeaning other people, or I knew all of this. I used to. A lot of what I'll talk about publicly when I talk about who I used to be was like a lot of it would happen on a basketball court or on a football field or whatever. Like I knew that what I was doing was rude and mean and unkind to other people. In spite of knowing that, I still could not find the strength to resist giving into those urges when the heat of battle, like I was in the heat of battle.
Right.
And I think it's because I didn't really see anger for what it is in light of who God is. So Saturday night after I got done preaching, Stephen sent me a quote from Dallas Willard that I had that he had referenced before. I'd seen him earlier in the day on Saturday, and he sent it to me after the service. And it was something like, I don't even know if it's actually a direct quote because I looked it up, but it's like, anger is maybe the most fundamental problem of human nature. And I was like, okay, this is interesting. Why? So it is a curious thing. Why is he talking about anger right here?
Just
What's this about? Why anger and words, hasty words? Why this?
Yeah.
And so I searched this, and AI, being what AI is now, is really helpful. Basically takes that quote and it says, well, Dallas Willard doesn't exactly say that, but that's a summary of his thoughts around anger. And then it gives me and basically what he believed was, and when it hit me, I was like, oh my goodness, is that anger is an outward symptom of a misaligned will. In other words, anger, my outward expression of anger is really me inwardly saying, I'm not getting what I want. Now, that's not always anger, but that's a lot of what constitutes human anger. If you stop and think about what makes you mad, it's most often you not getting what you want. Someone got in your way. Someone hasn't done things the way that you want. The story that I gave was of, I don't know if I told you this. So this last Thursday, we were meant to go to Bartlesville to visit Fran and Drew. We hadn't been out there yet to see their apartment. And so we were going to go out there and take a little tour of their apartment and go to dinner with them. And so it was everybody except Elliot. Yeah. And so we were all going to head out there. So we have a workout on Thursdays at 5. And so the idea is, work out and then come home and shower, and we're hitting the road. And so normally after my workout, and it was a hard workout and there was a lot of cardio in it, and my body, my core temperature is really elevated. I'm hot, but I'm coming straight home. And so I'm getting home, I pull into the garage, and my body's starting to cool down, but still sweating. Heather's in the garage, and I don't know, hello, whatever. Okay, get ready. Okay, so I go inside, I get in the shower, and I'm, trying to cool myself down because I'm about to get dressed in, nicer clothes, not, dressed up, but just, not workout clothes anymore. So I get all cleaned up, get ready, get dressed. I walk out to the garage. All right, let's roll. And Heather's like, oh yeah, we got to load that mattress that we're taking out to France. I need you to put that in the back of your truck. I'm like, what? And she's like, I told you about this earlier in the week. I'm like, well, yeah, I remember you mentioning we're going to take why didn't you tell me this when I got home and I'm sweating? It's so hot and humid out it's thankfully not 100 degrees, but it's still humid.
Yeah.
I'm like, dang it. All the Christian curse words are coming into my mind.
Yeah. But those are fine.
Those are fine. Those are fine. God doesn't mind
God
those.
gets it.
Because they're not, he doesn't look at the heart. So, so I go grab, and I'm grabbing this mattress, and I'm like, and I'm, dragging it down the hall. And I'm like, I don't even know. I got to load this. I got to figure out a way to strap a mattress down. And I'm going to start, I know that what's going to happen. I'm going to get out here and start sweating again. Yeah. And that's exactly what happens. And Heather's out there helping me. And I'm just like, why could you not have told me this? And I'm not berating her, but I know I'm responding. I'm literally in my mind. These verses are going through my heart. Be quick to listen. Yeah. Slow to speak. Slow to anger, and I'm not doing it, and I know I'm not doing it, but I don't care.
Yeah,
I care and I don't care. It's like I don't want to be too mean, but I want to let her know.
I want to obey God, but this is a timing issue.
Get your crap together, Heather. I'm so not happy about it. When I'm thinking about this, when I'm pondering, interestingly, Psalm 4, ponder in your own heart on your bed, and offer right.
And you had one right there, so you could have just.
Well, I did. Yeah, it's true.
You should have just laid
on the back of the truck.
Offered sacrifices.
But as I'm thinking about this Saturday night and kind of filtering that situation through, I'm realizing here's the revelation that dawns on me. Oh my goodness, my anger. This is why James says the anger of man does not produce the righteousness of God. Because what you're not doing is doing what Jesus did, which is to say, not my will be done, but your will. Literally what you're praying is kind of an opposite of the Lord's Prayer. My kingdom come.
Yeah.
My will be done. So much of anger is me going through my life with a certain agenda, a will, a strong desire that this is how things should be. And rather than counting it all joy when I meet trials of various kinds and letting those produce perseverance in me, I'm meeting trials with rage, responding to them with, no way, that's not gonna, I'm gonna pay you back or whatever. And that shows up in, like, it doesn't, this isn't like me hunting someone who's wronged me on the road down and, trying to get out of the car and fight them or whatever. Like, it's some folks, like, it literally does go that far. We're all aware of those, but it's an inner kind of just giving a continual, this is what I'm realizing. I'm like, oh my goodness, this anger is so much more dangerous. It's so much more than just, because I couldn't find the strength to resist it from just telling me that this is, it's just bad. It hurts other people.
Yeah.
But when I'm realizing, no, this is a direct assault against my allegiance to Christ. There's an idolatrous aspect to this anger. This is literally me being God.
Yeah.
Do I start to go, whoa, now I have new resources, I feel like. It'll be curious to see. Like, I'm literally like, this is the beginning of a journey. Well, can I start to identify this for what it truly is, the sinister thing it actually is, and allow the Lord to meet me there in humility and surrender and submission and go, okay, I'm feeling these feelings of anger, but I am entrusting. I got it. Nope. I know what's happening here. This is a fight for the inner allegiance of my heart. Who am I going to follow? Who's really on the throne here? Is it me? Or is it going to be God? Am I going to let him be God?
So as you say that, I just think you'll obviously never succeed by trying to correct all the people around you to where they respond to you the way you want to be responded to. But I also don't think that you'll do it by trying to just keep in your mind, I got to treat these people well. Because it hurts and all that. Because it's the motivation is me to you. That's the focus. Me to you
instead of me to God.
Instead of me to God. It's the byproduct.
That's the key.
Not the focus. And that's what I was going to earlier with missing the mark. It's like it's just even things that are noble. It's just
that's it. Gabe.
If I aim at nobility, I will fail.
Yes.
I have to properly aim.
Yes.
And so if I properly aim, then that's where life comes to you.
Yeah. This is why you can't beat lust by just saying
trying not to lust and putting
lust
guards
is bad,
on your or
this hurts other people or it devalues women or whatever like that. I mean, all of that's true, but that doesn't change my inward. It's just not enough to change my desires. It has to be a greater allegiance. Yeah. That's the idea of and you see that in Psalm 1, you see that in James 1 here where he says, therefore put off and receive. In other words, it's a shifting of allegiance and desire. I now want to please you more than I want to please myself. And that's what you're talking about with that missing the mark. And I think too many Christians, this is why I think that lady came up to me and said, you finally did it. It's like it finally occurred to her, and maybe I finally taught it appropriately or properly, where it's like the key to overcoming sin is not just trying not to do the thing that you know is bad, but it is seeing God and his way as the greater good. And when you realize who he is better, what he offers is better, then it allows me to shift. I mean, even my own internal prayers, where I am praying in the throes of, and it happens, of temptation, my prayers are shifting away from, hey, keep me from doing something bad, to, Lord, I want to please you.
Yeah.
I want to honor you. To be reminded that that's where that's really the deepest motivation, is not the not doing of something bad, but it's the positive of doing the right, not just even doing the right thing, but remaining loyal and to him and loving him. And that I'm finding is a far greater power than just trying to avoid the bad.
Well, you talk about it. You've said it. You might have got it from someone else, but it's if you can envision heaven without Jesus, then
you don't. Yeah, that's
you're probably not going to be there, right? So it's also the idea of even behavior that plagues us underneath of our Christian walk, and we would say, if I thought this in my past, like if I could have anything, and I had to ask and answer this question honestly, like what is it that I want? It's like, well, I want more than anything to be rid of this behavior that plagues me. And it's like, that's kind of heaven for me.
Wow.
In a sense. It's like, what am I really after? Do I want
But
Jesus, or do I want Jesus's? Do I want even the freedom? It's like, well, freedom and Jesus are synonymous. And it's like, well,
it's the kingdom without the king.
It is. It's like, I want the kingdom benefit.
Yeah. I'm
less interested. And that used to bother me all the time. It's like, why can't I figure this out? And why can't I get a grip? And it's that I'm trying to sort of strong arm the kingdom and bring in the kingdom. And that's why we get angry, because it's like, you can't. You can't do it. You can't perfect it.
Well, you find out, and you find out, too, from that perspective, if you're thinking about how anger works, how small, petty, silly your kingdom is.
Oh, yeah.
My kingdom is everybody's out of the left lane.
My kingdom is an empty highway. Yeah. We have the same kingdom.
Right? Like my kingdom is nobody's annoying me or bothering me or getting in my... So when you, like, that's the thing, like, there's so much more to your faith than not doing the bad things that you wished you didn't do. Because when you start examining why you're doing these things, you really start to see how corrupt and hopeless you really are.
Yeah.
And how much you really desperately need the Lord, which ultimately, is kind of some of the other verses that I was talking about. Psalm 4, be angry and do not sin. So just being practical for just a second, let's talk about anger from a really practical standpoint, because it is so common for so many of us. Maybe men more than women, I don't know. I know.
Well, maybe the expression of anger is different.
Maybe so.
I would say anger. I'm so angry.
Okay.
Yeah, and I've shared on the show before, like that is one of the primary areas that I have seen God work in my life is with my anger.
Is your anger an outward thing or inward?
It is so embarrassing to say that it was very outward expressions of anger.
Yeah.
Usually and I figured it out, is a little bit like the anger was always covering up fear or embarrassment.
Yeah.
So kind of trying to protect ego.
Yep.
Pretty hard, but get really big so I never have to feel small and like that sort of thing.
Yeah, anger for me, similar. If you wanted to see me at my most angry, embarrass me. I will absolutely humiliate and cut you as much as I can to deflect the shame that I must be feeling and to try to make you small. That, I think, is why I would get so mad when I would lose a basketball game or a football game. Because, also, so it kind of is anger on the surface, underneath shame, underneath pride.
Yes.
Because I came in believing I'm better than you. Just flatly, I am better than you. When that doesn't happen, I feel embarrassed, like I've been found out. When I feel that, I rage.
Yeah.
So I have to kind of humiliate you down back under me so that I can feel
I will
like
beat
I'm
you
better
somewhere.
I'll beat you somewhere.
So,
I mean, it's really disgusting when you think about it, but that's how I think those are the underlying feelings.
My desire too was that I would somehow at some point in life become a stoic, that I could just stoicism and I would be even and just so calm, and also that I would never speak and that I would just at some point not be able to talk anymore, because that would just be easier than embarrassing myself over and over like this.
Well, I think we need to consider, practically speaking, that the scripture never tells you or any of us to not be angry. Anger is not a sin. Anger leads to sin quickly. It's like money. You got to be careful with money. You need to be careful with anger. They tend toward, in human hands, we just kind of drift over. So one of the examples I gave, I think in only one of the services, is of a fire. And you don't let kids play with matches, lighters. Why? Because this is a powerful thing. It can get out of control really quickly, and it doesn't need to be in your hands. I think that's how anger is. I think so the directives that we get around anger are generally just be careful with it. Be really thoughtful about it. Don't trust your anger for being for being a righteous, good anger as much as you do. So like Psalm 4, be angry and do not sin. Many listeners will remember that or recognize that from Paul in Ephesians. He quotes it. Psalm 4, though, David writes it first. Be angry, do not sin. Ponder in your own hearts, on your beds, and be on your bed and be silent. Yeah. That's wow. So first of all, he's acknowledging, and I think that the be angry is an imperative. It's a command. In other words, I would say there are some situations in life where anger is not only an acceptable response, it's the right response. It's exactly what's needed. And the way we know that to be true is because God is angry. But his anger is righteous. In other words, it's directed properly. It's aimed at the right thing. How often, let's be honest, is our anger just at you?
Yeah.
At that person? We're not angry at a situation or at an action, and we're not trying to restore a relationship. We just want to pour out some punishment on you. And so, but God's anger is righteous. So there is a time and place where, when the situation calls for it, that anger should be our response. We should be angry about what has happened, sin and injustice, whatever it may be. But David would say, be very careful with this. And before you go launching into some tirade or whatever, ponder in your own heart on your bed and be silent. In other words, let the Lord speak to you. How do I know he's letting the Lord speak to him? Well, I think it's because the very next verse is offer right sacrifices.
Yeah. So this is what I've experienced with that reality of being angry. And so there's an anger at a situation, there's an anger at a person, and it's justified or whatever. But often whenever I think about it, what I realize when I ponder it and consider it is maybe not in the same way, but I am reminded of where I also fall short.
Well, that's the other thing.
So then it leads to sacrifices. And so when you said anger is an imperative, then I'm like, well, maybe part of the reason why God's saying be angry. Because when you're angry and then you consider why you're angry, you'll quickly come back to humility because you realize you too are also
Psalm 130,
guilty.
Lord, if you should count all our iniquities or mark our iniquities, who could stand?
Yeah.
That's so the person who's unrighteously angry is the person who's forgotten Psalm 130. You completely forgot.
So that's the thing that I feel is like there are people that are angry and they have forgotten to also look inward. And so it just seems that most people are just outwardly expressing anger.
Yep.
And we just keep doing it instead of just going, you know what? I'm guilty of the same thing. And here's the fear in that I find for myself. The fear in that is that you're abdicating justice at that point. Because if I go, I'm angry about this. This isn't right. You did something against me. You betrayed me. You hurt me. Yeah. And there's been some sort of injustice that has not been reconciled.
Yeah.
Well, if I say, you know what? I too am guilty. Maybe not the same thing, but I'm guilty and God has forgiven me, and so I forgive that person. In some sense in myself, I feel, am I just letting them off the hook? Like there's no repayment? I told you this in our sermon prep, but I told the story of a years ago hurt. Someone hurt me, and it felt like an injustice. I felt used. I felt
Sure.
in some sense betrayed.
Yep.
And this was years ago. And recently, this came back up to me, and I was talking to Summer about it. And as I'm talking, I find myself getting angry.
Oh, wow.
And I'm getting angry as if the wound is fresh.
Wow.
And I caught myself, and I caught myself because she caught me and told me to catch myself. And so as she says that to me, she's like, "Why are you so angry about this?" And I started to defend myself for a minute, and then I just sat still, and then I articulated, "I feel that there has been an injustice with no recompense."
Yeah.
And so then I went and got in the car, and I was like, I know enough to give this to God, cast my burden. I'm not going to take vengeance into my own hands. And to be honest, I don't even know what I would ask for. I don't even know what I want. I don't know what it is. And so I went and I prayed and I asked God. I said, "God, you know the situation. I ask you for justice in the situation as you see fit. You bring justice how you will. I give this to you." And then in Jesus' name, amen.
Yeah.
Well, as soon as I said amen, the parable of Matthew 18 of the two debtors.
Yeah.
The first debtor owed 1,000 talents. This is millions of dollars, if not more. And then and the master forgives this debtor because he begs him, "Please let me pay it back." And the master has mercy and compassion and says, and I'm going to wipe it clean.
Yeah.
And then the man goes out forgiven of the debt and finds a guy who owes him. And this guy owes him a few $1,000s. And it says it doesn't say he just demands it. It says he wrings his neck. He chokes him. He seizes him. He says, "You have to pay." He throws him in jail till he pays. And as soon as I pray this prayer for justice in my car, this comes to me. And I hear in my heart, "Do you really want justice?"
Yeah, man.
And it's like, justice is thorough. Justice is sweeping.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and I realize, Lord,
Or do you want a selective justice?
you have not been just with me.
Yeah.
You have forgiven me a great debt. Who am I to demand? And we talked about this. It's the log in my eye. The log in my eye is me to him.
Yeah.
The speck in my brother's eye is him to me.
Yeah.
In relationship to the failing.
I talked about all this. This is so good.
Same. So it's just like, this is nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing compared to this. And when this you're aware of, then you go, "Oh, that's no big deal."
Yeah.
No big deal.
That's so good. What we want is a selective justice where those that have wronged me get justice, but I don't get justice for the wrong I've done to others. This is why, and I got into this. I didn't actually put the verses on the screen, but I got into it in most every service. The Lord himself says in Luke 6, just before the log and speck in the eye thing, he says, "Judge not, and you won't be judged. Condemn not, and you won't be condemned." Then he turns it positive. "Forgive, and you will be forgiven. Give, and it shall be given unto you." And I'm like,
which is just about money.
Exactly.
Obviously, he's talking about money.
Obviously, that's only about money and giving in a church. Like that's. I made that joke basically. It's like, that's the one that Luke 6:38. Let's talk about that come offering time.
Yeah.
We miss that it's connected to three other statements. When you stop and think about the whole saying as one saying, don't take that one verse out of context. Judge not, or you won't be judged. Condemn not, or you will be condemned. Forgive, and you'll be forgiven. Give, and it'll be given to you. What is he talking about? He's talking about your posture, your orientation to the world, just like what you're saying. Gabe, if you go through your life demanding that I bring justice and judgment to everyone that you think deserves it, don't expect then me to turn around and be gracious with you.
Yeah.
It's exactly what the Lord confronted you with. Do you really want justice? That's what he means when he says, "Judge not." I think it's so helpful because so many people think that just means that we're not to judge anybody or to have any perspective about anything. That's not true at all. What he's saying is you can't go through your life demanding that God judge other people, or that you, heaven forbid, in your own heart are judging them and looking down on them like you're somehow better than them, but that you recognize that grace has been extended toward you. And this is my posture and orientation to the world. That's why he's giving 2 negatives, 2 positives. Don't go through life with a judgmental spirit and a condemning spirit. Instead, I want you to be generous, and I want you to be forgiving. Have you been forgiven of a lot? Great. Then let's take that posture towards this other person. So your prayer changes from, Lord, bring justice, to what? How did you change the?
I quickly changed it. I mean,
How
as
did you
soon as
pray?
I said amen, I realized it's like, Lord, I mean,
Have mercy?
just in case you send an angel out to fulfill my initial request for justice.
about
I ask
that.
you to please stop. Bring him back, because I ask you for mercy.
Well, what if you were praying for you? Like,
Yeah.
what if you were
Yeah.
praying for one of your kids? Would you pray, Lord, bring justice on them? You would not pray
No
that.
chance.
You'd be praying,
And,
Lord,
and the
have
reality
mercy,
is that I
forgive.
maximize their sin and minimize mine.
Exactly.
And so it's just,
Exactly.
and that's why
'Cause
people
yours
have
is
a hard time
understandable
with
and
this.
theirs is inexcusable.
Right. It's just like, I hear you, but they need to be, and it's like they need to be dealt with. And make no mistake, there is a justice coming, and God will judge outlaws,
Absolutely.
rebels, evildoers, anyone who's not under the blood of Christ. So it's not as if God's saying, because there are people who have been
Yeah.
greatly victimized.
Yeah.
And so it's not like, hey, your sin's as bad, I was abused. Well, you're just as, it's not the point. The point is that you are not the one to carry it out and exact it, and that you before God are able to
That's
receive
exactly
it
right.
so that you're not, because it's too heavy a burden to carry.
Yes.
It's miserable
Yes.
to live. And I mean, I was years ago, and I'm sitting on my bed and I'm just like, as I recount this. And I'm thinking, this is just a horrible thing to still be dealing with.
I think this is I didn't get into this in any of the services, but this is why we have Tell Me More. I think would be helpful. I think there's an anger that's outward and loud and brash.
Yeah.
And then there's a smaller anger, or a quieter anger that's inward, like a flame that we keep alive, that we stoke that flame every now and again. And I would just say to the person that's listening to this, I heard a story recently from Dr. Vlachos, who'll be on the podcast here in a few weeks, a professor of mine at Wheaton, who was talking about a situation, and maybe I'll have him tell the story whenever he's on, but he was a pastor in Utah years ago, had a lady came into his bookstore just angry. And she was from California. She was in all this turmoil with her daughter, and it was just, she was looking for a book, and she just, and so in the course of the conversation, she's just outlining, my daughter did this, and she did this, and she did this, and just all of the different reasons, all of the different grievances, things she had against her daughter, and all the ways that she had failed her. And he just had pastorally and supernaturally, the Lord just prompted him to say to her something like, he didn't say these exact words, but it reminds me of Peter, I think, says to Simon, I perceive that you are in the gall of bitterness. Like there's a root of bitterness in you. And she kind of looks at him like, no, I'm not bitter. I'm just frustrated. And he said, no, you're bitter. And he said, because love keeps no record of wrongs. That's 1 Corinthians 13. And here you are, having just spent the last 20 minutes with me, outlining for me every little thing, that every way in which your daughter has failed you. And she just broke, recognizing it was true. I was bitter. And I wonder how many people listening to this, maybe you don't have a problem with, you don't show outward anger that much. And so most people wouldn't consider you to be an angry, quote unquote, person. But you know as well as I do that you have people on lists.
Oh, yeah.
And you have lists for those people of wrongs and grievances. And you maybe from time to time bring those back up in your mind and heart, like almost like little morsels that you feed on. Like you treasure those things to keep that flame of bitterness and anger alive that just remind you of how they failed you. And I would just say to you, there's a that will break your relationship with the Lord. It will destroy, it will keep you, and I think this is why James is talking about it. It will keep you from receiving. That's what he wants. Receive with meekness the implanted word of God. Therefore, get rid of this anger. Why? Because when I'm angry, I can't listen. I'm not hearing. I am certain. I'm set. I am convinced this is the way things are. I'm not listening to anybody else, and most of all to God. And there's a block there in your heart for God to speak to you and to minister to you. And I would say to you, the way you want the Lord to respond to that other person is not the way you want him to treat you. And I think he would remind you of that. If you've been forgiven, then you also have this. If you've been forgiven of so much, then how are you going to turn around and hold someone accountable for this small grievance that they've done to you? Relatively speaking,
like who God is and the goodness of God and his goodness extended to us is being filtered down, where we're not able to get all of it that we could and should. And
yes.
And I think about when I'm angry.
Yes.
Why am I angry? Well, they did something. Well, what did they do? Well, in a sense, they took something from me.
Yeah.
And so the harboring of those, grievances is a way for me, even if it's just in my own internal self, to grab something back that I have over them.
Wow.
Because they took something and there needs to be recompense, and so I may not get it, but I can have it on my own.
Wow.
And what that means then is where you grab that on your own, it's because, or what it, well,
you don't believe God can...
you're not able to receive that true set. So it is. We think of desire as just like it's my appetite. So it's like no, it's those things that have been put in you by God that require satisfaction, and you're going to find it some way. So if the Lord, if I am the one going, I'm going to grab this solution, then God's going, the actual satisfaction you cannot receive.
Well, it's interesting that James has only just said, every good and perfect gift.
Yeah.
In other words, what you're essentially saying is there's just some things God can't satisfy.
That's exactly what it is.
There's some wrongs he can't make right. He's never going to be able to heal this wound, deal with this gap. So I've got to take what I can get. It's a scarcity mindset.
So if God says, I'll be just, I'll take care of it, vengeance is mine. And you go, yes, but if I forgive them, then I'm abdicating the reconciliation, and that's dissatisfying to me. I don't trust that me doing this your way will do anything for me, so I'm going to grab it for myself.
What's interesting is the same root, the anger, outward blowing up anger, which for someone like me and even people who, I would imagine, my hunch is that people who are in that boat, loudly angry, it's like a storm. It's able to blow over and you can just move on pretty quickly. And so you end up with like leaving a wake that you don't really think that much about, but other people do.
I'm pretty good at getting over some
I can move on.
But
I'm going to be mad in a moment, but then I'm going to be cool 10 minutes later.
Yeah.
And we want like the world to be okay with that. Then there's another group of people who are not nearly as like outward with it, but they're the quiet storm and it lingers for a long time. But I think the root is the same, and that is, I just don't really believe God can do anything or satisfy me with doing this his way. That's where I go back to the beginning. You're deceived. You don't see God for who he is. So let's go back to what James has said. Every good and perfect gift comes from... Do you really believe that... I think it's interesting. Good, yes. Perfect.
Yeah.
Meaning there's no gaps.
There's no better solution.
There's nothing better than this. He is the answer to every one of your challenges. Yeah. That's why you can't just go to God for solutions to problems, because you're missing that he is. That's like the whole idea of him being your portion. Like he is the solution. He's the gap filler. He's the wound healer. He himself is the solution, not you getting what you want or arriving at some circumstance where everything is kind of the way that you hoped it would be. That is to try to create a heaven that doesn't necessarily need God. that's a heaven where basically all of your needs are met and you can do what you want. Well, that's just the same thing that anger's after, which is my will be done, my kingdom come, which is I just want the world the way that I want it. But what true Christianity is exactly what James is calling us not to be deceived about, which is to receive from our good Father every good and perfect gift, and to trust him that when what gifts he's giving, well, then that must be exactly what I need. Yeah. Instead of me trying to go out and get what I think I need for myself, which is exactly what you're talking about with sin. It's to misaim. I think there's something besides what God has for me that can ultimately satisfy me.
And we're angry because we have such limited resources to work with.
Yeah.
To
go get it.
Our righteousness.
We're not omnipotent.
I can't make you do anything. I can't bring any kind of justice, and so I'm just ticked all the time.
Think about how ridiculous that is that we have a Father who has all power, all ability, everything. And yet we, in our crazy, ridiculous, stupid, limited ability, are trying to work for ourselves.
Yeah.
What we think it is. When seen from that perspective, you go, "Oh my goodness, how stupid have I been?" Yeah, really stupid.
Yeah.
But thanks be to God, He's been so gracious. Yeah. So I ended this weekend with a prayer. Only in the Sunday services. I didn't do this on Saturday night. Let me see. I've got it here. It's a Dr. Johnson's prayer. This is so cool. The providence of God from this weekend, because this was my Bible reading for this week was Luke 6, which I used, Psalm 130, which I used, like so much of and then this prayer. So this is a guy named Dr. Johnson. I don't know who Dr. Johnson was, but he could pray. But I want to close with this because and maybe we can include this somewhere, Lindsay, in show notes or something for people, because this prayer, I prayed this week, and I need to be praying it more often. But listen to the humility of this prayer. Think of how we might be different if we took this approach. Almighty and most merciful Father, whose clemency I now presume to implore. After a long life of carelessness and wickedness, have mercy upon me. I have committed many trespasses. I have neglected many duties. I have done what you have forbidden, and I have left undone what you have commanded. Forgive, merciful Lord, my sins, negligences, and ignorances, and enable me by the Holy Spirit to amend my life according to thy holy word. In my view, that is exactly what James means when he says, receive with meekness the implanted word of God. It is to recognize that I am filled with all filthiness and rampant wickedness. Lord, put that away from me so that I may, by your Spirit, live out, integrate in the truth of your word, and thus produce what anger cannot, which is the righteousness of God made manifest in my life.